The Academic Staff Union of Universities has issued a 14-day ultimatum to the federal government to resolve several ongoing issues, including the renegotiation of the 2009 FGN ASUU Agreement that's based on the Nimi Briggs Committee draft agreement of 2021 and the release of the withheld salaries from the 2022 strike. ASUU President Emmanuel Osodeke expressed frustration over the government's lack of commitment, stating that failure to address these issues would lead to a crisis in the public university system. Some of the key demands are the implementation of the 2021 agreement, conclude the renegotiation of the 2009 FGN ASUU agreement, release withheld salaries, and down to, yes, after release withheld salaries and funding for public universities, allocate funds for revitalizing public universities as per the 2023 federal budget, earned academic allowances, pay the earned academic allowances included in 2023 federal budget. The union has warned that if these issues are not resolved within the stipulated time frame of 14 days, it will not be responsible for any resultant industrial action. Ambassador, I can't really count how many times we get to talk about ASUU every month.
Well, that's why we have the opinion that the public universities should be indirectly given autonomy, so that the vice chancellors and the senates of whichever nomenclature they have in these public universities and polytechnics should be able to manage these universities. You asked me,
yes, what happens to the people who will not be able to afford fees at that time? Because that autonomy will lead to an increase in fees.
Even at this point in time, not all parents are still able to afford the fees.
But now would have less.
In the public.
Now would have more.
For me, you know, my...
You're trying to educate. Are you trying to like take some people out of school? Well, out of school children are a lot.
You see, when you talk about out of school, I've always told you here that there is really no difference from those who have gone to school and those who couldn't go to school.
So should we scrap education?
Because of the nature of educational system.
So should we scrap our education?
No.
So why are we trying to take more children out of school?
No. My point is, I'm trying to lay a foundation. Number one, most of the people you are talking to in government, their children are not in those public schools. So the threat of your strike makes no sense to them. Because we find ourselves in a situation where if it's not affecting me directly, right, it doesn't make any point. So ASUU should also realize, because I know too many ASUU members who have intentionally refused their children attending public schools, public universities. Most of the ASUU members, their children are in private universities. It's the truth. But we can't come here and begin to mention their names. So sometimes it looks as if we can destroy the system. We can hold the system to ransom, simply because we will not be affected so much.
Who is actually damaging the system
our children,
now? Is it ASUU or the federal government?
Let me come. ASUU and federal government.
Okay.
If the elephants are fighting, it's the grass that suffers. ASUU is not a student. The federal government is not a student. So the people who are, I am speaking for the student, for the children. If I have my way, none of my child will go to federal school. Because it's so frustrating and looks very hopeless. If you go to state universities right now, you can't hear about strike. Are they not same lecturers? Are they not also trained in the same way those who are in the universities? Before, when state universities
funded the same way,
before the state universities, had this no work, no pay, and the governors are intentional about it, that they used to join ASUU strike, it was the same thing the way it is. But when governors sat down and said, you cannot carry our problem and join with the federal government problem, that was when our state universities began to work well. Because at that point, the state governor said, it's not federal government that is funding you. We are funding you. So why will you now transfer aggression because you are in a union? That was how strike in state universities ceased. So I want to believe that the same measure that the state universities are now working with, that model should be applied to the federal universities.
No work, no pay.
No work, no pay.
But is it not applied in the federal? Is that not part of the demands that they have?
ASUU can be requesting for money when there was a policy of no work, no pay. It's part of the spoil of war.
So how is that changing the system? That's what I'm asking you.
Now
the federal government has that, which you said you have recommended that it will help put an end to this in-season strike. But that is already it's already in place right now. And that's even one of the reasons they are saying they will go on strike.
You see, federal government looks as if it's nobody. At the various states, the state governors were intentional about it. Some lecturers were sacked. The highest you could do is to go to court.
One of the reasons ASUU are giving an ultimatum now is because most of their members in some universities have been sacked.
Of course, I'm sure they have taken the matter to court. And if they have not, I encourage ASUU to take the matter to court.
Now, let's also look at the agreement since 2009. What is going on with the federal government keeping its part to the agreement?
You see, when you have an agreement, and the person has not kept to that agreement, you have options, to pursue the breach of contract. I don't think if ASUU mean well for our children, our students, that it is out of place for ASUU to go to court. If you have an agreement, a valid agreement with the federal government that they have breached, you can go to court, not to suffocate the children. So my option is ASUU, while I encourage federal government to meet the agreement because it's moral. If I have an agreement with you, I should be able to keep to my words. If there's any reason why I cannot keep to my words, I should be able to respectfully call you back, right? My brothers, my sisters, we made this agreement thinking that we can honor it. But these are the challenges that we are having. Can we review it? I think ASUU will not be so wicked to say that we cannot review this agreement. So I feel that the way Mr. President have come up openly to say, forgive us of our indebtedness. The federal government can also meet ASUU and say, please, forgive us for the breach of this agreement. We cannot meet up to this agreement. Can we review it and come up with something workable? I think ASUU should not be angry to renegotiate. But if the federal government have got a policy to say no work, no pay, and you are aware, when you fight, know that there will be spoil of war. The strike also affected the federal government, affected our children. So if it has effect on our students and upon the federal government, ASUU members too, you should share from the fights. Forget about that no work, no pay. If you did not work for that period of time, how do you expect salary? Is it moral?
All right.
So I think that ASUU should not be asking for that no work, payment that it should not work.
But
on the issue of funding the university system, I know the federal government have been releasing some funds, but it may not be enough. They are talking about more funding. I don't think there's any university that will say that they do not get resources from federal government, in each of their academic calendar.
No work, no pay agreements that they